Okay, welcome to Module 2. We're going to be talking more about self-compassion and how to use self-compassion to talk with our peers about self-injury and suicide. Um, Remember that peers can report experiencing intense emotional reactions about hearing a friend's self-injury, including shock, worry, and confusion. This is really common. It's generally uncomfortable to talk about these things because it can be scary. But training that addresses these reactions and educates peers about self injury and provides tangible strategies to appropriately support their friends could go some way to mitigate the risk of caregiver strain. So, learning and remembering that it can be shocking and scary to talk about NSSI and STB, but if we just kind of learn how to approach with compassion, um, and recognizing the difficulty of the emotions, it can be easier. So, first, what is self compassion? Well, self compassion is made up of three components. It includes self kindness, which is fairly straightforward, being kind to oneself; common humanity, which is just the interconnectedness of humans, that we are all struggling and there's no exception to the rule. We are all struggling, we are all imperfect, and that's just something that we have to remind ourselves of with compassion. So when we make mistakes, we just have to remember we are not the only ones who are making mistakes. And then mindfulness, which is just the ability to stay in the moment and to pay attention to the present moment and how things are happening. It's not thinking about the future, it's not thinking about the past, it's paying attention to the current moment. And it's not like strictly meditating or doing yoga. It can be anything as long as you are sitting and paying attention to what's actually happening right now. And that can be hard. But it's really important to developing self compassion. Self compassion is not self esteem. It is not the same thing as self esteem. It is just self kindness. It's not how you feel about yourself, it's just treating yourself kindly. It is not weak, and it is not selfish. It is important to show ourselves kindness, um, so we can be okay to help others, right? It's not selfish. It's the same concept of putting on your mask on the airplane before everybody else, the breathing mask. You got to put that on first so you can breathe, so you can help other people. So, why are we discussing self compassion? We were just talking about how to help others that are struggling. So, why are we talking about self compassion? Well, according to Kristen Neff, who developed the Mindful Self Compassion workbook, sustaining empathy for others begins with compassion for ourselves. So, if we can show ourselves compassion, we can also find ways to show compassion for others and help them when they are struggling with things like suicide or non suicidal self injury, because that's what we're training about. So let's move on to peer support and listening, because that's a key component to somebody who's struggling. How can you show empathy to others? Two things: compassionate listening and active/mindful listening. Compassionate listening just includes embodied listening, which is listening with your body language, and giving and receiving compassion. So that, which is pretty self-explanatory. Active and mindful listening includes um, taking genuine interest in an individual's situation, help to build awareness of options and opportunities outside of normal everyday life. When problems arise, try to demonstrate problem solving strategies to move the person towards solutions, and help them assess where they are through reflection and feedback. So, reflection is basically taking what the person says and saying it back to them in your own words, just to make sure that you are understanding how they're feeling, and if they don't feel like they've been, heard, it gives them the chance to say, to, correct or say, reiterate kind of what they're saying in different words so they can, properly kind of get those feelings out. So we've got those two tools in our belt, and now we're going to go over this vignette. And this time we're going to have the solution to the vignette, but throughout this time I just want you to think about how you would respond to your friend Ayesha. So Maria considered herself the sensitive type, always wanting to help others. One day, her close friend Ayesha asked to go out for a cup of coffee. In tears, Ayesha told Maria about a very recent breakup with her long-term boyfriend. Instead of letting Ayesha tell her story, however, Maria found she kept interrupting her friend, reminding Ayesha it was going to be all right and that she would find someone new. Finally, in exasperation, Ayesha blurted out, "Why can't you just listen to me? I'm grieving and I need to let it out. Maybe I will be all right someday, but I'm not okay now, and I need you to be here for me now." Visibly upset, Ayesha got up and left the table. So, remember, how would you respond and talk with Ayesha after or about practicing self-compassion and strategy? So, pretend you're Maria, and how would you, or you're a friend of Maria, how would you have Maria practice self-compassion or other listening strategies she could try to help get things working with Ayesha? You can pause and consider this if you'd like, because we're going to move on to the next part. After Ayesha left, Maria had a chance to collect her thoughts. Maria realized how distressing it was to see her friend so upset. She just wanted to stop Ayesha's pain by offering helpful counsel, which obviously backfired, because Ayesha didn't get the compassionate ear she so desperately needed. Furthermore, Maria's sense of being overwhelmed was amplified by memories of a similar breakup of her own 1 year earlier. Maria loved her friend very much, so she went by her house later that evening to apologize and ask to talk some more. This time, Ayesha related her story. Maria practiced compassionate listening. Whenever Maria felt uncomfortable, she offered herself a long, comforting in-breath. Maria soon discovered it was much easier to listen to Ayesha. She was happy and relieved she could really be there for her friend after all, and also be there for herself. So this is a great vignette because we kind of see how to use compassionate listening in real time. And when things can get distressing and you get uncomfortable, you can just give yourself an in-breath and then come back to the present moment and keep working and just listening with your body and paying attention to the friend in need. And that brings us to the end of Module 2.